The region of Tibet has dealt with death, loss of power, and cultural changes after the Chinese claimed the area in 1950. However, centuries before this event, Buddhism was first entering the culture of Tibet. Mark Aldendifer, an anthropologist who conducted field research in Tibet, states that scholars who study Tibet's past believe that Buddhism was first introduced into the central part of the country from India and China in the early to mid-7th century AD. Tibet's rulers adopted the religion and became its patrons, founding a number of temples, chapels, and monasteries, many of which still exist. The Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism has a vast and rich history. The name Kagyu means teaching lineage, and it is said that its doctrines and practices are passed down through a succession of enlightened teachers. As one of the four schools of Buddhism, the lineage itself contains many important figures, but its first trace goes as far back as 988 AD, in which the Indian sage Tilopa was born. Tilopa became a master of the teachings and soon became the teacher to Naropa, a scholar who had conceptually mastered the teachings of the sutras, tantras, and Vinaya. To fully understand the true meanings of the Buddhist teachings, Naropa had to subject himself to a series of trials led by Tilopa. These trials lasted for 12 years, and Naropa was able to attain enlightenment through the teachings of the Mahamudra, also known as the quintessence of all Buddhist doctrines. The story of Tilopa and Naropa is only the beginning of a long lineage filled with important masters, teachers, and ideals. The founder of Shambhala training, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, was a man of great wisdom and knowledge, but also seemed to have gravitated negative attention from his many scandals. Rinpoche, born in 1939 in Tibet, was the 11th descendant of the Kagyu lineage of Tibetan Buddhism. Rinpoche left Tibet after the Chinese uprising in 1950 and lived in India, Scotland, England, and Colorado before eventually moving to Nova Scotia. Rinpoche was modern because he was able to teach key Buddhist ideals to a Western audience. This is where his Shambhala vision came through. Trungpa Rinpoche was innovative in the fact that he helped found and establish various communities and organizations, such as Naropa University, a Buddhist-inspired college located in Boulder, Colorado, and Vajratu, a Colorado-based organization used to promote the Shambhala teachings. This is now known as Shambhala Buddhism. Trungpa Rinpoche gave back to the community and public in ways that were innovative for his time, but his battle with alcohol and his intimate relationship with a young woman caused him to be the talk of some controversies. In 2002, Diana Mukbo, then known as Diana Pybus, released an account on her first encounter with her future husband. Mukbo was only 16 years old when she married 30-year-old Rinpoche, which created a stir between Mukbo's wealthy English family as well as Rinpoche's Tibetan colleagues. Mukbo's first encounter with Rinpoche was when she was 15 years old, saying, "I heard about a rally being sponsored by the Buddhist Society for the Liberation of Tibet, and I decided to attend." The program went on for several hours, with one speaker after another. One of the last speakers on the schedule was the author of Born in Tibet, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, who appeared on stage in the maroon and saffron robes of a Tibetan monk. Before he could say anything, however, he passed out and was carried off stage. We were told that Rinpoche had taken ill, but I imagine that alcohol may have been involved. Rinpoche's alcoholism was ultimately one of the causes of what destroyed him, but his demeanor changed after his involvement in a car accident in 1969 that left him partially paralyzed. Mukbo says that the difference in his character was evident, saying it wasn't just his physical being that had changed. He had a different manifestation now, which I found fascinating. Before the accident, he had been a youthful Tibetan monk, so pure and light. Now he was much more heavy and solid, and there was a sort of old dog or well-processed feeling about him. He seemed older, and he had an unfathomable quality that I hadn't experienced before. He was transformed. Their marriage caused quite a commotion for the press and Rinpoche's status as a Tibetan monk, but also for Mukbo, who ran away from her upper-class Christian home to marry a Tibetan monk. While applying for their marriage licenses, the registrar asked them to both put their hand on the Bible and swear before God. Rinpoche denied the request and watched as Mukbo did the same. The registrar, as Mukbo remembers, looked horrified to see a young English girl renounce Christianity and marry Rinpoche. While Rinpoche was the subject of many scandals, his son, Sakyong Rinpoche, has since taken over as the spiritual director of the Shambhala centers after his father's death in 1987. Sakyong Rinpoche was born in India in 1962 and received a Buddhist education in India before joining his father in England in North America. Sakyong Rinpoche has since taken his father's preliminary ideals about Shambhala and has created the term Shambhala Buddhism, which stems from Trungpa Rinpoche's original idea about what Shambhala cultivates. In Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche's book, Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior, he describes the Shambhala vision. He says, "For although the Shambhala tradition is founded on the sanity and gentleness of the Buddhist tradition, at the same time it has its own independent basis, which is directly cultivating who and what we are as human beings." Chogyam Trungpa and Sakyong Rinpoche's vision about Shambhala has become a global phenomenon. In Tibet, there are stories about an enlightened kingdom called Shambhala. Although no one is certain if this kingdom is real, it has become the basis for the Shambhala vision. Through meditation, those who visit Shambhala centers gain ideals about basic goodness, dignity, and an enlightened view of the world around them. Chogyam Trungpa says in his book, Shambhala, The Sacred Path of the Warrior, that the Shambhala teachings are founded on the premise that there is basic human wisdom that can help to solve the world's problems. This wisdom does not belong to any one culture or religion, nor does it come from the West or the East. Rather, it is a tradition of human warriorship that has existed in many cultures at many times throughout history. On the Shambhala website, it says, "The Shambhala teachings emphasize being in the world and bringing together everyday life, work, family, and social action with the path of meditation. The teachings focus on how to help this world. In essence, Shambhala is about living a full human life right in the midst of challenges." I visited my local Shambhala center twice. Located in Berkeley, California, this particular center has two locations. The first setting, located on the side street, is a tinier venue and used for when there are smaller crowds. The second location is where I meditated and filmed my footage. Walking up the stairs, the first thing that caught my eye were the doors labeled as meditation rooms. Around the corner, there were prayer flags hung above the main door into the common room of the center. During my first visit, I meditated in this meditation room with 3 other people who were new to Shambhala. There were many cushions and zafu set up for those to meditate, as well as candles and pictures of Chogyam and Sakyong Rinpoche. In the front of the room was a cushion for the teacher. Across the way is the meditation hall, which seats many people and is used for group meditation, chanting, or watching live footage of a famous Shambhala teacher speak. When I was there my first time, I sat in this room and watched a live feed of Sakyong Rinpoche speaking to Shambhala centers all around the world on Shambhala Day, which celebrates the beginning of the new year. There are many items in this meditation hall that are traditional in value, such as the teacher area, which reiterates the fact that the teacher is always present. In the front of the hall, there are hanging pictures of Chogyam and Sakyong Rinpoche. Looking around the room, I saw many pictures that are said to be traditional Tibetan Buddhist depictions. Overall, my time at Shambhala was eye-opening and allowed me to understand more about Buddhism outside of the classroom. The vision of Shambhala is a global influence. There are centers not just in places like Boston, Boulder, or New York, but there are also Shambhala centers showing up in places such as Russia and France. The ideals of Shambhala speak to anyone of any culture or religion and say that one can use meditation to find basic goodness and wisdom in their everyday lives.